I went to the OB-GYN because I was pregnant, hoping to get a regular routine checkup. But upon entering his office, the doctor in charge of me told me something that shocked me to my core.
Miss North, you mustn't be having an affair.
Wait, excuse me?
You won't be arrested even if you take someone else's husband, but you shouldn't do it anyway. It's just morally wrong. And if you're going to be the mother of this child, you have the responsibility of thinking about its well-being and take action to stop this nonsense. Am I understood?
I was angry with my doctor. I tried to talk back, but when I asked him why he would say such things, he went on to tell me a devastating truth. My full name is Laura North, and I'm a 30-year-old office woman. I was married for 5 years to my husband, Kai Spencer, and we lived together in a nice house. After I got married, I felt it was inconvenient to change my last name, and after talking about it with Kai, I lived my married life with him without changing it at all. Kai and I have known each other since high school, and we started out as partners for a science project. We became good friends as we researched how magnets and liquid nitrogen could be used to realize consistent, frictionless levitation. But in high school, we were both dating other people. After turning 20, we met again at the coming-of-age party. It had been perhaps 2 years since we last spoke in person, and you'd think things would be awkward after such a long time. But you'd be wrong, because we hit it off really well. We went out for dinner a few times thereafter, and he eventually confessed his feelings for me, and we started dating. I don't know if it was because we were old classmates who were really good friends, or if it was because we were so young back then, but we had a lot of fights in our relationship. But because of that, we knew each other very well after we got married, and because we had no secrets between us, we got along really well in the marriage. After 2 years of marriage, however, we were faced with a crisis. We wanted to conceive a child, but we couldn't, no matter how hard we tried. If we tried for a few more months and still couldn't conceive a baby, I was thinking of going to the hospital. And when I did go to the gynecologist to find out why I wasn't getting pregnant, I discovered I was the cause of our infertility. I was devastated, and I ran home to my husband, crying. Kai comforted me as he said very kind words to me.
Hey, Laura, look at me. Look at me, darling. Now listen. Don't you dare worry about it. If your doctor told you it would be difficult for you to have a baby, it still means it's possible, you know? That means we can do it. We have our own timing, just as everyone does. Let's wait for the right moment, and let's enjoy our time together as you get treated for your situation. Can you do that for me?
I was so happy to hear those words coming from his mouth. 3 years later, I finally got pregnant. I was truly able to have a child. I was convinced that when I told my husband, he would be happy. But I unfortunately didn't get the reaction I was hoping for whatever reason.
Oh, you're pregnant? Well, that's good.
Wait, you're not happy?
Oh, no, I am. I'm really happy for us. We worked really hard on it after all.
Suddenly, the original tone of his voice changed, and he became the husband he'd always been. But I began to think that maybe he didn't want children anymore, and that made me feel depressed. But I had to protect this little life that was growing inside my belly. I was sure Kai was merely surprised that his kind words from a few years ago were right on the money. That's what I told myself, but I don't know if it was because I was pregnant that I became paranoid wreck. Even the slightest altercation in my husband's behavior led me to suspect something inappropriately drastic. Even though I knew full well that was definitely not the case. He came home a little later. When he came home a little later, or went to work more often on his days off, or even when it seems like he smelled different in a good way. When I notice those changes, I find myself wondering what his reaction to my reporting my pregnancy really meant. Maybe he really didn't want to have children with me. I was paranoid that maybe she didn't want a child with me at all. You know, Kai, I noticed you've been acting a little strange lately. Did I do something wrong?
No, you didn't, darling. Nothing's different from usual. It's true, I admit that work is making me pretty busy these days, but nothing's out of the ordinary. Maybe you just got a little paranoid since you got pregnant. Laura, that pregnancy does make a lot of women overthink things. I'm not saying you are specifically, but I'm saying that it's maybe a possibility.
I hope so. But I knew better. Whenever my husband lied to me, he has a blowing his nose during the conversation. And on this particular occasion, the sound of him blowing his nose resonated in the house. That was more than enough conclusive proof that my husband was lying. But I was pregnant, and there was no good that could come from putting myself through something that would just be an overreaction. I thought it would be for my own good to wait to pursue my doubts once the baby was born, and once I was settled with my life with my baby. I pretended to pay no attention to the changes in my husband's behavior, and my pregnant life went on in its way. One day, I went to the hospital for a routine checkup. The examination was over, and the baby was growing well and healthy in my belly. I was relieved when I heard the doctor's explanation about the baby's condition. The doctor was about to finish his explaining, and I was feeling good about everything in my life.
Well, the baby's doing fine, Miss North, but you know you mustn't be having an affair. Taking someone else's husband for yourself won't get you arrested, but it's a crime nonetheless. Or rather, it should be. And if you're going to be the mother of this child, you have the responsibility of thinking about its well-being and take action to stop this nonsense. Am I understood?
He suddenly got stern with me and started lecturing me about the ridiculous notion that I was having an affair. I was so surprised that a full 10 seconds passed before I could conjure up the strength to ask him what he meant by that. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Doctor. I'm not having an affair.
But the other day, Mr. Spencer stopped by with his wife, and their baby growing inside of her. You're Mr. Kai Spencer's lover, aren't you?
What are you talking about, Doctor? He's my husband.
Wait, what?
My conversation with the doctor didn't make any sense at all. But I understood everything. If everything that my doctor just said was true, it confirmed that my husband was having an affair. The reality that I wanted to pretend not to notice suddenly washed over me like a tsunami, and I nearly fell out of my chair. Dr. Okoi, along with an assisting nurse, helped me steady myself, and they offered me to lay me down on the sofa that was in the diagnosis room. Despite his kindness, Dr. Okoi didn't seem to understand the situation, so I decided to show him proof that I was my husband's wife. I showed them the pictures of my wedding with Kai, and I even called his parents. This was enough to convince the doctor, and the look on his face showed that he finally understood that I was his true wife. It seemed that because my husband and the woman whom he was having an affair with had the same last name, Spencer, Dr. Okoi had mistakenly assumed she was his wife and I was his unfaithful lover. He apologized to me, which I appreciated, but I still found it odd for a doctor to voluntarily get themselves involved in the personal lives of their patients. You may have wielded a sense of justice, and I understand that you were only trying to help what you thought was the truth, but I hope you realize that this sense of justice was reckless this time. You have just destroyed a potential family, Doctor. While I appreciate you unintentionally showing me the truth, this baby is now at a great risk of growing up without a father. In this day and age, when personal information is strictly confidential, you exposed one of your patients. I'm afraid I must warn you there may be consequences. I gave the doctor a cold shoulder, but then Dr. Okoi, with his head hung and his shoulders slumped, answered quietly,
I've been there myself, when my pregnant ex-wife was having an affair with another man, and I got emotional.
He went on to tell me his experiences, and while it was a very different situation from mine, the fact remained that he had suffered through an affair of his wife. From how he described her, it was clear he loved her so dearly. He must have been devastated when he discovered the truth. He actually just finished the paperwork finalizing his divorce with her because his wife was with another man. It's true, maybe we were in a similar situation, but that still didn't justify scolding others about their personal matters. I didn't understand why he said what he said to me. But now, I am more irritated with my husband than I am with my doctor. Perhaps his initial reaction to my pregnancy was because his lover had also gotten pregnant. What really pissed me the frick off was the fact that he didn't come to my examination, but that he tagged along with his lover to hers. To think that my own husband would rather devote his time, energy, and love on someone other than the one he chose to marry made me see red. I asked my doctor to call my husband when the next examination appointment for his lover was decided. He nodded and promised he would cooperate in whatever way he could. I was grateful, but it was also all too natural. He really did destroy an entire relationship single-handedly in mere seconds. It's only natural he cooperates, because that was one of the only ways he could redeem himself of his mistake. When I got home that day, I found my husband sitting on the couch, as per frickin' usual. Needless to say, I was annoyed at the mere sight of him. But while I was positive he was having an affair, there wasn't any substantially solid evidence against his affair. So I had to calm down and go on with my life as usual. And when I went to my next appointment a few days later, Dr. Okoye said,
"Your husband and his partner have an appointment next week."
He kept his word, and I now knew when Kai and his lover were going to be at the OB-GYN next. When I returned home from my appointment, I called my parent-in-laws. I told them, with emphasis on the former, that it still wasn't completely confirmed just yet, but I was almost 100% sure that their son was cheating on me. My in-laws got down on their knees before me and begged me for their forgiveness. They literally had nothing to apologize for because they did nothing wrong. It was all my husband's fault, and he was responsible for his crimes. Then I came up with a plan and explained it to my in-laws. I then asked them to help me, to which their answer was, of course. They had been a great help to me since my husband and I first got together, and I felt so sorry this had happened to them. But it couldn't be helped. Everything they had done to raise their son to be someone faithful had all been in vain in the end. The day my husband and his partner came to see me at the hospital, I went to the hospital too. My husband came into the hospital looking like he was having a good time with his lover. He even carried his baggage for her, even though he had never done that to me myself. I felt devastated, but I had to protect the child in my belly, and sadness or any other negative emotion wouldn't be good for both of us. I knew I had to be strong for my baby's sake, and then my parent-in-laws joined me later, and they were visibly furious. Mr. Spencer was clenching his fist so damn tightly, I was certain a piece of coal would turn into a diamond into his grasp. And then Kai and his lover were called into the doctor's office. We followed them from behind, and as soon as they started talking about their baby's condition, we all stormed the doctor's office. Of course, my husband was surprised, and the woman whom he'd been having an affair with screamed in surprise, but we didn't give a flying frick about that. We went on to brutally interrogate Kai.
Wait, what's going on? What are you doing here? Mom? Dad? How? Why?
What do you mean, why? You need to tell us all what's going on here.
You goddamn son of a bitch.
My husband was so surprised, he was speechless for quite some time. The woman whom he's having an affair with storms towards the doctor. Hey, Doc! Get these frickin' strangers out of here. They're accusing my husband of some kind of stupid bullshit.
So I guess you're not his wife after all,
What the hell are you talking about? I think you need to see a doctor.
This lady is Mr. Spencer's true wife, and the folk standing behind her are Mr. and Mrs. Spencer, your lover's parents. If you claim to be his real wife, how can you not know your own parents-in-law? Surely you recognize them, right?
The woman turned to my in-laws, stared at them for a couple seconds, and then bowed her head. Nice to meet you, Miss Spencer. Mr. Spencer. My name is Flora. It's not nice to meet you, Miss Flora. We don't need to go through introductions, because I have no interest in getting involved with you whatsoever. My mother-in-law was in such a state of shock that she withdrew with all color flushed away from her skin. I couldn't care less about that. I wanted to hear the truth from my husband's own mouth. I gave him a murderous look, and perhaps that made him realize his situation. He gave up and started talking.
Okay, you caught me. I'm having an affair, and her name is Flora. I'm sorry. She and I were having a baby, and I was trying to figure out what to do. And then I heard that you got pregnant too, but I didn't think she could survive on her own compared to you. Since you have a full-time job, Flora has a bit of a physical disability, and finding an appropriate job for her is pretty hard, you see. I was trying to support her. She's carrying my baby too. As a father, I need to be there for the baby, as well as the woman who's bearing her. She might not be able to raise a child on her own. I think you of all people would agree that no one should raise a baby single-handedly.
That was more than enough to know one thing for certain. My husband was going to choose her over me. I wasn't even shocked anymore. All that remained inside of me was scornful contempt and disgust at this bastard's disloyalty. And then I saw the look on my husband's face. I saw something inhuman, something laughable. All right then, let's get divorced. You be sure to make her happy, okay?
I'm sorry.
I'll make sure I get my money's worth from you. And you too, lady. That's what I said when I gave her the news that I was going to charge them both alimony. For whatever stupid reason, Kai was surprised again. You've engaged in adultery, and in this particular case, the law dictates that should the victim request it, they can demand alimony from the perpetrators. You owe us alimony, and you're also going to pay child support as this child's father.
Why would I pay child support if my child's not even born yet? I didn't think there would be any money involved after you divorced me, so I thought I'd wait a little bit longer before telling you.
I can't believe this. Did you just hear that, Mrs. Spencer? Mr. Spencer? I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry.
We'll take care of him. We can guarantee you that.
My in-laws proceeded to attempt to drag my husband out of the office. That's when Dr. Okoye stepped in.
I'm sorry, sir. Mom. We mustn't forget they've come here because they have an appointment for a checkup. May I have a word with them before you do?
So we stopped my in-laws for dragging Kai out of there. But then the doctor said something that somehow made the atmosphere in the room far worse than it already was, using nothing but 8 simple, crystal clear words.
That's not even this man's child, is it?
Everyone in the room froze at this most unexpected statement. I was just about to tell myself that things couldn't possibly get any worse. But I should have remembered what happens in movies. The moment someone utters that very sentence, things get so much worse. What the frick are you talking about? Of course that's his frickin' child, you good-for-nothing bastard!
It's not a lie. Mr. Spencer, let me ask you something. When did you start having relations with her? 3 months ago. We met at a club. She knows she's been pregnant for the last 6 months. Do you know what that means, sir?
My husband's face went blank. His expression was so priceless, it took all the willpower in the world to prevent myself from bursting into laughter. I did him the favor of helping him comprehend what's happening. So in a nutshell, Kai, that child in her belly is not yours. It belongs to someone else.
But there's no way. That can't be true. Can it, Flora?
And then the woman started laughing maniacally. Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. I didn't know whose child it was, and I was going for a guy who looked like an idiot and made a decent amount of money. This chap works for a big company, and he was so kind as to spend a lot of money on me. So I was okay about settling with this guy.
No, this can't be happening.
Kai was actually depressed. For a singular second, I felt bad for him. But it wasn't like he was with this bitch against his will. He also consented to this relationship, so he was equally guilty in this situation. But then, he suddenly turned furious and shouted loudly,
"This is all your freaking fault. I was about to divorce my wife because of you. You lie to people to exploit them, and you siphon all that you need from these poor souls. You're freaking disgusting."
I was about to say, "What the hell are you on about?" But I decided against it. I instead let the two traitors hassle about it for now. Sorry, can't really do shit with someone I lied to make things right again. And anyway, you are the one who actually cheated on your wife, aren't you? You were the one who decided to betray your wife, not me. You were the one who initially asked me out on our first date. You were the one who offered to support me through my hardships. And you were the one who actively spent money on me. Could you not bring me into what is clearly your problem with your wife? You told me you loved your wife dearly, but you also said that you like younger women too. You have no right to accuse me of anything. As more and more truth about my husband's wrongdoings were spilled into the world, Kai was starting to get pretty anxious. Of course he was. It's only all too natural. It wasn't just me who was listening to all this shit. His own parents had front row center seats to his demise.
First of all, if you hadn't told my wife anything, Dr. Nosybody, none of this would have happened. And as for you, Flora bitchface, Lara wouldn't have discovered these things if you had just shut the frick up. We could have been happy together if you hadn't opened that stupid mouth of yours and ruined everything. Well, screw you. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna have a nice life with my wife and my kids and my family.
How dare you? Well, fine then. I never needed you in the first place anyway. Watching them arguing made me feel both incredibly satisfied and really sick to my stomach. My father-in-law, seeing the two of them, flew into a rage so genuine and so pure that I'm sure everyone in the entire building heard him and wished they could run for their lives.
Shut the frick up. Shut up and stop making a scene, you stupid sons of bitches. This two-timing bastard will come home with us right fricking now. Lara, my dear, will you stop by our place a little later?
Don't forget, honey, you've got a baby on the way. You stop by when you're sure you can, okay? We're not gonna let this stupid child leave the house for a while. My in-laws were very considerate of me, and their eyes showed a look of apology and shame as they dragged Kai back to their house. I had no reason to stay there any longer, so I decided to leave, and then a voice from behind me said, "We've already broken up, so I don't expect any alimony or anything like that. I'm sorry you were betrayed, but it's also your fault for getting betrayed by your husband in the first place, Laura." I'd forgotten that damn witch Flora was still there in the office with me, pointing at me, laughing, and partially making fun of me. And you never pushed him away. The responsibility is all yours. If you just said no, none of this would have happened. But it did, and the consequences will be that I charge you alimony. We can't get any personal information out of this hospital, so I will instead ask the detective agency downtown to find out your address, and I will send you a content-certified letter from my lawyer. That's all I said before I left the doctor's office. Behind me, I could hear her yelling like a banshee, but I didn't care. I proceeded to leave the hospital. I then headed for my in-laws' house. Inside, I saw Kai was sitting in front of my in-laws, kneeling on the hard wooden floor. A deadly silence had plunged the house into an Arctic atmosphere, and I was frankly hesitant to take another step inside. But I took a breath and strode into the room where the three people were. As I walked in, Kai smiled at me for some reason.
I'm glad you came early. If you hadn't come, I would have been kneeling for literally the rest of my life. Let's go home now. We don't have to get a divorce. We can think about the child growing inside you. How about we take it easy and relax the rest of the day?
What are you talking about? The divorce is gonna happen, Kai. I don't know why you ever thought that if you leave the woman you were having an affair with, there would be no divorce. But I am divorcing you. I don't trust you anymore. No matter how hard I could try, I know I will never be able to trust you again. I'm gonna ask for a lawyer to take care of the alimony you owe me. Mrs. Spencer, Mr. Spencer, thank you so much for everything you've done for me. I'm so sorry, my dear. I'm so sorry. I understand if you think it'll be difficult to introduce the baby to us when you have it. We understand. But we will still help you out in any case. We'll send you diapers and other things you'll need to take care of the baby properly.
I'm very sorry, Lara, my dear. I'm aware that no matter how many times we apologize, you'll never forgive us. I understand that, but I'm really sorry nonetheless, and we hope you do accept our contributions to raising your child. Wait a minute, what the hell? Why are we speaking like we're actually gonna go through with the divorce? That's completely crazy.
For some reason, my husband seemed to think that we didn't need a divorce, but that's not true. I just said goodbye to my in-laws before leaving, perhaps never to return. Thereafter, I hired a lawyer, and through him, I contacted my husband. I don't want to be under any more stress for the sake of the child I'm carrying, and the same goes for the woman with whom he was having an affair with, Flora. I asked the detective agency to send a letter of confirmation about the whole situation not to the woman's house, but to her parents' house. I thought that she would run away without paying anything otherwise. And then, through my lawyer, I demanded for alimony. And sure enough, it was paid in full in a lump sum. I mean, it might have been her parents had paid it, but I don't know, and I don't care. And since then, my in-laws pressured Kai into quitting his job. He resigned from the company he was working for, perhaps a week after the whole situation. And now, he's apparently working in an inn owned by a friend of my old in-laws. The alimony was paid in one lump sum. It seemed Mr. and Mrs. Spencer took on the burden of paying me back for their son's crimes. But all of his paychecks from his inn job is used to reimburse his parents. As for me, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I'm now feeling responsible as a mother these days, and I'm going to do my best to raise this child into a beautiful, independent, happy woman. Although I plan to remain a single mother, I will do my absolute best not to make her feel lonely, and I will work hard for everything she'll ever need it to make her happy about her life.